Okay, everybody, welcome. Today we're going to be looking at the Elegoo SatelLite software kind of setup, go through a few steps on how to install it and how to get it going. And more to the point, we're going to focus on settings so you guys can get the exact dialed in settings that I have, because I got to tell you, I am not having any fails at this point. So, first thing we're going to do is you're going to go on over to Elegoo's website and do a search for satellite 3D slicer. You can use the other slicers if you want, but quite honestly, I am not having any issues with this one, and it is working perfectly. You go over here, you choose whether you got Windows or Mac. This is on my Windows machine. I also have a Mac. I do not have it installed on that, but for all intents and purposes, we're just going to click on this download for free, and you're going to download it. And you can see I've tried it once before, but we're just going to go ahead and do it again. And then once it's there, you're going to click on it. You're going to go ahead and click yes to this. And then from here, I'm going to do some screenshots to show you guys what to do because I already have it installed. All right, so once you click yes, you're going to click next here to the welcome screen. Agree to that user license agreement. And, up to you if you're going to install it for anyone or just for you. Go ahead and click next. You got to wait through the install process, which only takes a couple minutes. And once it's done, you're good to go. Click the start button. Pick your language. For most of you, I assume since you're listening to this YouTube video in English, you're going to choose English. Personal preference here, whether you choose dark or light. I went with dark. Again, if you are a beginner, click beginner, walk through these setups. If you're advanced, then you don't need to go through any of this, and you just jump right in and start using it. All in all, we have about 17 steps to run through. Once we get through all of these, this is basic setup, selecting your device and, applying the device and setting up the resin library and deciding what resins you're going to use. I don't know if you bought some already or not, but there's many to choose from, and they have a lot in their library to apply, so don't worry about that. We're going to load some resin. You're going to apply the configuration, click next, apply, next, and you just kind of keep going through the setup process. And again, you can always refer back to this as you go through it, just to kind of see the steps if you want to know what's next or what you did previously. The one thing they do walk you through is kind of setting up basic generic models where you can apply them, put them on the build plate. It's up to you if you want to go through it. I personally did not. Some of the important stuff where they start talking about the toolbars, both the one on the side and the one on the top. We will kind of get into those here in a little bit. And the generating the automatic supports, which I talk a lot about in my upcoming video. And generating the slice and saving it. Probably most people are going to save it to a USB drive, and then you're done. You walk through the tutorial. That was a nice, quick, dirty kind of look at what's coming. If you don't have an Elegoo account, go ahead and sign up for one, register for one. If you do, click the login and log into it. And if there are any updates, please make sure you do the updates. I have found that their updates so far have been very beneficial. Once you go through all that, you can now actually go through and set up your printer and your resin, following kind of the instructions we just went through. And again, you can always rewind back and look through it if you need to. This is pretty straightforward with what you're doing. I set up the Space Gray 8K because that's what I have and that's what I love and that's what I've used, and I haven't had any issues with it. And you can go in here and tweak the settings. Again, I talk about these here in a little bit. If you want to go ahead and set up your printer so you can wirelessly print to it, again, I'm having problems doing so with the Saturn 3 Ultra that I have. I don't know if it's part of my Wi-Fi or if it's something wrong with the printer. I need to contact support to try to figure it out. When I do, I'll list it in the comments below or add it to the video for you. And with that said, it's time to move on to the next section of video. All right, now that we've gone through kind of the screenshots for the setup, I kind of did that earlier when I first ran through it, just so you guys can see what that looks like. Now the important stuff. Go ahead and open up your Elegoo SatelLite 3D slicer here. And then once this gets up and running, obviously, if you guys are familiar with slicers, this would look fairly familiar to you. There's not much difference between them. But the one thing I found in particular with the Elegoo SatelLite slicer is that it almost is click and go. Like I barely do anything in here, unlike the other ones where you got to tweak and do all kinds of, particularly when it comes to supports and paint. And no, you don't have to do any of that in this. It's fantastic. So first, once you get it open, setup process kind of walked you through how to set up the printers. Like I have, the Elegoo Saturn 3 Ultra, obviously, and I'm using the Elegoo Space Gray 8K. A couple things to note here is my bottom layer is a 12, and my exposure time is a 61. I did have it at around a 60, but when I added the screen protector to the Elegoo, they recommend that you bump up your exposure time a little bit. So I did that on the bottom 61. I think my exposure time for normal was 2.5, so I bumped it up to 3. So far I've done a couple prints and they're running exactly like they did before I put the screen protector on, so I think we should be pretty good here. Other things to note in here is my lift distance, I think for the default. The lift speed, I left everything exactly the same whenever it came. And let's see, the retraction distance, I may have I bumped this one up a little bit. I think it's 4. I bumped it up to about 4.5, just to kind of give it that little more space and time in there. I did my bottom layer count to 12. I think by default it's like 2 or 5 or something like that. This just makes all the difference to the world when it comes to adhesion to that build plate. I rarely have anything lifting off the plate anymore. And if you watched my my unboxing video, you can see the very first rook that I tried to print came off the plate, or didn't even build it. But I've had a couple lifts initially until I raised this bottom layer count up to a 12, and since then I haven't had any issues. Okay, so the one thing that I've been reading a lot about online, really, exposure times and cure times and all that. It's good, and it's good for kind of dialing in. But this wait after lift, like if you really want to are having some issues, give it some time between curing. So when it picks up and it sits there for a second and then it goes back down and then the light hits it and it cures it and then it comes back up, give it some time to kind of fill in. Everything I read online about these printers is that this alone, this setting alone, this wait after lift can make all the difference in the world if you're having weird separating line issues in your prints, particularly if you're doing larger prints. Just increase this a little bit and try again. I bet this solves most of your problems. Okay, so we've gone through most of the settings here. Should be good to go there. So let's go back to our plate. We're going to open up a print. And, once again, I have not really had any luck getting this software to print to the printer, or really either Chitubox or any of them. I can't get any of them to wirelessly connect to that printer. Not sure what's going on there. Yeah, it would be nice to have, but I've just been sneaker netting on a USB drive, and that's fine. I'm only a couple feet from my printer at my computer here. All right, so once I found my files, because I lost track of where I was, you go in here, you can browse to wherever you have your files. We'll open up this this hilt from Hex 3D, which I'll have a link to it down below for you. Once you get this opened up in here, using the right mouse to kind of move it around on the build plate, you can use the wheel. If you push the wheel in, you can move your build plate around. You can zoom in and out with your wheel plate or with your wheel. And the one thing I like to do for all the hilts that I print off is once I get it on the build plate here, I go over here and click rotate, and you can see that you get this new nice little arrow design here. So we're going to spin it, and what I want to do is see these holes here where the buttons go. I just want to spin those to where they're facing up somewhat. I don't like them on the side. Oh wait, I went too far, didn't I? Let's go back a smidge. And maybe a little bit more. There we go. And now what we're going to do is we're going to give this a little bit of a tilt. Every print you guys do, stick it around 35 to 30. You should be good. I found that right around 30 is usually a good sweet spot for most items. You apply that. You've got your nice angle on it now. And we look from above. You got it pretty much centered on the build plate. Now, once you start getting a little adventurous, you can click on Move here. And can move over. You can put two side by side and some smaller items over here. Just remember, you got to make room. Like underneath this line here, there's going to be supports, so you just got to be careful. And the one thing about moving items, sure, you can use the arrows to move it this way, but you can't go like this with it. And this, of course, this arrow, you can only go this way. Just grab this blue here and move it wherever you want. The one thing to be careful is if you grab it here, you can go down into the build plate, which you definitely don't want to do, because that causes all kinds of problems. You can see now we're below. You definitely don't want to do that. So bring it back up here and put it up above the build plate. But use the blue. That's all you'll ever need to do. Once you've got that there, apply it. You got it located. Click on the support button here. All right, guys. I got to tell you, I've had a Hallet 1, and supports were a nightmare on the Hallet 1. They were just an absolute nightmare. What I have found is that generating automatic supports in Elegoo SatelLite is pretty much flawless. I know there's going to be a lot of you out there disagree with me, but just try it. If you haven't tried it, just try it. I can sit here and tell you right now that I rarely have any failed prints due to support issues. There may be a few too many supports on the item for my liking. There's a lot of little things that I want to show you here once this gets generated. See these little guys here? Do we really need those? Probably not. It's going to help keep this line straight. Will it print it without them? Probably. But, it's an extra minute with a small screwdriver after you've got this thing printed to come through here before you cure it and just kind of pop those things out. The problem is, if you can see, they're everywhere. They are absolutely everywhere. So you just got to spend a little extra time cleaning up your print before you cure it. And you can even do it after, but I find that can be a little difficult. And by the way, I still need to research this, but I think it's better to remove these before you cure it, because if you don't, when you try to remove these, it takes a big chunk out of everything. So my experience is that leave down in the comments below if you agree or disagree with me that you should remove these before you cure. But regardless, I don't. I remove them before I cure and not after. But yeah, you can see here it's got plenty of support. Like I said, maybe too much, but regardless, the print comes out almost perfect every time. So I'm just going with it. And it's a time saver. I could have opened this file up, put it on here, put it into position, ran the supports, sliced it, and have it on my printer in, seriously, 2 minutes. I could never do that. If I was going to sit here and try to get these supports in here correctly and try to get the best I possibly can, I could be here for 30 minutes to an hour trying to do that. Where, I do it this way and I've got an extra 2 or 3 minutes of support removal and maybe an extra 5 minutes of kind of cleanup with some sandpaper afterwards to get rid of any extra divots that were created. I'm okay with that. Still beats a half an hour to an hour of setting all this up and then still having to do that stuff afterwards. All right, so once you've done your automatic supports, and again, you can use different support types. I've never used a different one. I always use this one. The EVO 100 millimeter works perfect for me. You go back here, you slice it, and once you're done slicing it, you can take a look at how it's going to look. The one thing to note here is if you're not familiar with with slicing for resin printing, a lot of white, in my opinion, is bad. The more white you have, the more suction you have, the more likely you're going to get a failed print. So if this whole thing, and this is one of the reasons why there's all these little holes in it, if this whole thing were white and you were trying to print to it, that increases the suction force, and it's going to stick or not stick, and you're going to get some odd lines, some misshaped prints. Just try to avoid it. Try to avoid large white areas when you're doing your slicing. If you're seeing it here, do something different. Don't use an FDM printer for it, or in many cases you can hollow these items out. So if this whole thing were a solid white, it should print fine. But if it were this entire area, go back, and I'll show you here in a minute how you can go back and hollow it out. Hollowing it out works really well. Plus, it really lightens it up. You don't lose a lot of integrity as far as strength with it goes. Lightsabers you're not going to want to hollow out, but if you're doing a full, something big and with a lot of meat to it, hollow it out. I've done that in a couple items now, a couple of larger items. Like I did a Rancor from Galactic Armory. Hollowed that thing out. Man, it turned out great. It was perfect. It was just perfect. So anyways, yeah, save your slice file. Save it to a USB drive. Walk it over to your printer. Let's go back here. So if I wanted to generate the, hollow it out, literally you click on it, you click hollow, and you confirm. You can adjust and play with the thickness. You may or may not want to. I haven't really messed with that at all. So far I've been pretty happy with what it's done with that. It seems to pick a good number for it. And then the one thing to do is if it's a solid piece, you're going to want to stick some holes in it. So obviously this hole is too big. But if you look over here, I've got the radius up around 10. Let's take that down to like, we'll say 3. And we'll take the inner radius to like, we'll say 1. And now you got a nice little hole. But if you're going to be printing like big, thick prints, consider putting holes in the bottom of it. It just allows for drainage. And if it's a really wide base, put bigger holes in it so you can get some light up in there to help cure the resin. Otherwise, you're going to have that thing sitting on the counter. It's going to be resin leaking out of it for who knows how long. But yeah, put your hole in it. Now slice it. First, we'll confirm it. See, put a hole in there for me. A little cone-shaped hole. Slice it again. Now, we go back down and look. See, it's hollowed out. So you don't have nearly the amount of surface that you had before. And again, I wouldn't do this for a lightsaber. It doesn't really make any sense. But if this whole area were a full print, then you hollowed it out. So where you just had the outlines and then everything in the middle was empty, it would just be some supports. You'd be good to go. Just put some big holes on the bottom so you can crack those supports and call it a day. Other than that, really, this is my basic tutorial of Elegoo SatelLite. Really, this is all I've ever done with it. I haven't really played with much of the other settings, which I know there's a lot of fancy ones in here. You can do the scale and you can mirror them, which I've done a mirror before. And if I wanted 2 on here, that's fine. And just move it around, that's fine. You can clone them. You can make a copy. Move it around. Oh, I know what I wanted to show you. One other thing. Build plates. I don't think a lot of other slicers have this. But if you wanted to do a second build plate, boom, look at that. Isn't that great? Let's take this guy. I'm going to grab it right there, move him over there. Look at that. Now I got a second build plate. So you can, if you click on this, slice this one, have one in the waiting. So if you've got, like, let's say you want to do a Hex 3D lightsaber, and you want to have all the pieces to the one lightsaber you want out of the hundreds that they have, you can have your hilt, and you can have the base, and you can have everything else that goes along with it, the pommel, and on different plates, and then just print them off, or on one plate and print them all at the same time. Because that's the one thing that, if you don't know this already, I will share this little bit of information with you, that no matter how many items you have on your plate, it will take the same amount of time to print. The big difference and the big thing that takes the most amount of time is the height. So the taller the item, the longer it's going to take, because you think about it, it's coming up and down, up and down, up and down. It's up, down, up, down. Every time it does it, it cures it, it goes up, cures it, goes up. So no matter how many items you have on there, it's going to do the same movement, the same amount of time every time. So fill your build plates up. Obviously not too much, because again, we're going back to that. You don't want too much white space on there because you cause too much suction and you can have a failed print. But I mean, I have filled this thing up with, 2 lightsaber hilts, 2 pommels, 2 or 3 bases and some knobs, and it's printed just fine, no issues. But one of the nice things about it is see how they're doing these holes now in the base. That really helps alleviate a lot of the stress. You can always do previews, confirm it if you wanted to see it. Your prepare, and then the device. Like I said, I haven't gotten much into that because I haven't really had a chance to connect to it wirelessly. I guess I need to reach out to Elegoo to try to figure out what's going on there. It could be the printer, could be my Wi-Fi, could be my computer. I don't know. But either way, that's pretty much the quick and dirty rundown on the Elegoo SatelLite slicer. And quite honestly, I'm very impressed with the out-of-the-box performance of it. A couple small tweaks on my resin and the printer options, and once I get into actually preparing it and throwing supports on it, I don't do anything except just let it do it. And I click slice and go print. And man, I'll show you some of the things that I've printed with it. The detail is unreal. I absolutely love it. I love the printer, and I love this slicer. No reason for me to even think about using another one. Now, if you are an experienced user and you want to have the more granular control over this stuff, by all means, dig into this. Go get one of like Chitubox, one of the big powerhouses, and spend for the pro, and you can do all the tweaking and editing and adjustments that you want. But for me, as long as the item comes out with the exact detail that I'm looking for from the model, I don't see a point. Just put it on the plate, let it auto support it, print it, and do a little bit of finish work at the end, and voila, you're done. Thanks again for listening to my ramblings about the Elegoo Saturn 3 Ultra and the Elegoo SatelLite Slicer software. I hope this has helped you fine-tune and dial in your settings. Thanks for watching, and until next time, remember to keep printing tomorrow today.